Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have a chance, please head over to YouTube and see our wonderful videos that we are putting on. I mean, not to toot our own horns. We're doing some good videos over there, vlogging our experience with the Build Your Library, Ancient Civilizations. We're having a great time.
Yeah, and I think
we're in week 5 and 6 right now.
And we're going to be adding some more curriculum reviews soon. So stay tuned. We're getting our new YouTube setup going. And so we really appreciate those of you that have checked that out. And we noticed we got a couple of new reviews on Apple Podcasts. So we super appreciate that. And if you haven't reviewed us yet on Apple Podcasts, please do that. It makes our hearts happy. And, you know, for those of you joining us on YouTube, all your likes and comments and things, we read them all. We do. We're not so big that we don't enjoy each and every one of them. So if you leave us a comment saying this was super helpful or love your videos or whatever, we totally dig that. So thank you. Thanks for the encouragement, you guys.
Any comments as I age that I'm looking more and more like George Clooney, I will like and
you will accept.
I will like and follow and comment back. Ariel, one of the biggest things happening in the world right now, other than other things that I'm not allowed to talk about on this podcast because it's not on brand, aliens.
You're so weird.
Is the AI revolution. So people have probably been opening up their Facebook pages or they have been reading articles and they've heard the term AI. There's all these, we've seen an infinite amount of it. So we as tech people, as amateur tech people.
Yeah, can we say we're tech people? I don't know.
I mean, technically I was a tech person for a while.
Yeah, I still work in tech. So
you're still in tech, yeah.
It counts.
So we've been hearing AI more and more, and specifically around 2 areas of application that people can actually interact with. That is around image generation. And the second one is actually in text generation. If you have a younger, high school kid or of a college student, it is likely they are one of the 100 million people who have been using AI generating text tools such as ChatGPT. And we'll get into the various different ones out there. But ChatGPT, I believe, was the fastest tool ever to 100 million users. I mean, faster than Facebook and Twitter and all these other technologies.
I don't doubt it. It's amazing. I used it a ton. I'm working on my grad degree right now for my MBA. I used it a ton to help explain things to me. Like I'd read some complicated thing in the textbook and not fully understand it. And I'd say like, can you simplify this and explain it to me? And it would. And I was like, oh, this is so great. So it can be a really great tool. I know some people are a little bit afraid of it. And, I think, I know that there is going to be some government oversight coming in and there is going to be some rules on it and things. But for the moment right now, there's a lot of goodness that you can take advantage of, and there's lots of we can leverage for our homeschool. So
you've mentioned this over the last few episodes. Kind of teased it, I think, a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, we're using it in a few ways, but I'm honestly astounded by the number of ways people are using it. Things I would never have even thought of. There's a really great Facebook group, and we'll go into that. That's talking about different ways to use it. So the purpose of this episode is to give you an overview of kind of what the landscape looks like, and what these tools are good at and what they're not good at, and give you some initial ideas to get started in using them, and you can start dabbling. And then
I think we're going to do every quarter we're going to put out another episode because I think
it's changing too fast.
Well, it's not just that it's changing too fast, but it's becoming almost necessary to use. And as educators, we are thinking ahead in terms of our children's education and their careers and the technologies that they may or may not have to use, whether it's I know we're thinking science and we're thinking like, okay, they got to learn to type and how to use, critical thinking skills when investigating things online, writing, essays and compositions, doing research around history and whatnot. So they have to end up using and interfacing with a lot of technology, not just the fact that, each and every one of us has phones on us at
Yeah.
all the time, and computers are everywhere and they're ubiquitous. And when tablets are everywhere and screens are everywhere, there's so much technology that they have to navigate. This is going to become one of those pieces of technology that I think will become not just mandatory, but it's almost going to become necessary for them to learn over the next, I would say, 5 to 10 years. It will become almost ubiquitous and
Right. They're going to find ways to use it, and then it's going to be a really necessary
exactly.
tool. Like
So we're
you're
not going to
saying.
go into any of like the details of like, okay, where is AI going to be used in the
Yeah, I don't-
commercial sense and everything. We're
Yeah,
going
I
to
don't
talk
have a crystal
about
ball right now.
how can we use this in our homeschool and where can we leverage this.
Right. And then and like you say, I think we'll be kind of every quarter doing a new,
Little
maybe we'll
roundup
call it,
newsletter.
technology and homeschool or something, and do a roundup of it. And really it's because as we've been researching for this for the past couple of months of how to do this episode. And it was so daunting because every
But it's
time
not
I
just
thought
research, it's like we are using it
Yeah,
now.
we are using it. And every time I kind of thought I had gotten it in a bubble that we could like present to you all, then the bubble kept growing with new ways to use it and new ideas and new products. And so I think we're just going to have to keep touching this because it's just going to change too quick.
So let's get into a couple of the AI products, specifically around the image generation. This is probably what was first on the scene in the sense of people maybe have heard AI for the first time. They were able to start to dabble with it. This is where I believe I got my first touch into it. And
yeah,
this
you've been
was
using it for Midjourney for a long time.
almost 8 or 9 months now, almost going on a year.
You were a very early adopter.
I think I was in the beta program for Midjourney. I was accepted into it. So I think if I remember right. So let's talk about the AI art generators.
Right.
First there's probably 2 big ones that you may have heard, and there's kind of a third out there as well. The first one would be the DALL-E 2. And so this is essentially similar to Midjourney, where they create these realistic images based on word prompts. So for example, give me an image, or you'll type in there and say, image prompt, a dog on the top of a roof of a skyscraper overlooking a sunset with, hues of purple and orange, photorealistic, in this aspect ratio.
We had one. You did one for our daughters. It was like
they're dancing. The 2 girls dancing.
Girl on a dragon with a
the dragon one.
Butterfly girl on a dragon with a wand at sunset or whatever. I mean, our kids gave you this crazy prompt and you put it in, and the generator can make these for you. So the thing with DALL-E is it's really looking to create realistic images. It costs about 13 cents an image or so. So there are larger monthly plans that decrease your cost, but every image there is a cost to it. So none of these AI art generators are free, which is important to note.
And what's important about DALL-E 2 is that it's owned by the same or managed by the same company, OpenAI, that does ChatGPT, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So they're under the same thing. So if you've heard ChatGPT, DALL-E 2 is essentially their image generating AI tool that is under the same umbrella of that organization.
And we're going to put links to all of these products in the show notes, so don't worry about spelling and things.
So a lot of times, so if you think about what is DALL-E and we'll talk about Midjourney next year, what are they doing? Essentially, you are renting space. What you are paying for is space on a server that they have to crunch the information of your prompt, generate the images, and return those back to you. So these are done through a web interface primarily. There are tools out there like Stable Diffusion, which are a little bit more wonky and more difficult to use, but they can be then installed on your computer locally, and they use your local computer to generate the images. And that can be slow if you do not have a high-performing graphics card.
Right. It's much cheaper to just pay for the images to be run.
Exactly. The next one is Midjourney. I think Midjourney and DALL-E 2 were kind of are in this like running, horse race. Who has the best tech? And some things that DALL-E 2 does well, Midjourney lacks, and there's other things that Midjourney does really well that DALL-E 2 lacks. I'm primarily on Midjourney, and I've used Midjourney for about 9 months now. Inspiration, making art images. Making funny art images for my friend to make fun of them or something like that, just as a joke and whatnot, having fun with it.
You've been using them to generate
books,
covers,
inspiration art, character art, landscapes. It does a really good job at
And
landscapes.
we'll talk about all the different things that it can create. This one is really good. Midjourney is really good at creative and imaginative images. So if you really want like fantasy, or you can look at some of the examples of things that they have made on Midjourney, and they are breathtaking. Some of them are just completely photorealistic images of people and things that are just like you wouldn't know. So this one, it's a little bit more difficult to use because it relies on Discord, which is it's a software application where it's
essentially like a chat.
It's like a chat. Yeah, it's a
The
chat type
tool.
thing.
If you remember, sort of like an AOL Instant Messenger, if you could imagine something like that.
Remember where we had like chat rooms? Let's go in the Wayback Machine, and there were
AOL
chat rooms.
rooms.
Yeah,
right?
and you would go into a chat room on something that you were interested in. Well, this is kind of like that, except you aren't sharing space with a bunch of other people. Discord is made to do that. So like I'm on a Discord, for example, for board game people that does board game deals, and we can all kind of chat about that, and they talk about board game deals. But so Discord is primarily for that. But if you get Discord to run Midjourney, it's just you're in your own private channel. It's not like there's nobody else in that room with you. It's just you.
Yeah, Midjourney has their own essentially servers, their chat rooms, where people can generate and test out things. This was back when Midjourney was kind of wide open. Now they've kind of closed it down because they had too many users, and they were actually breaking Discord. They were too big. Their groups were too big, and so what they do is they use Discord essentially as the way for you to interact with Midjourney. So you essentially will invite Midjourney's essentially like a bot, they call it a bot, into your private server or into a group server, and then you can throw commands at it, like prompts, like, hey, make me an image of a dragon on a plane fighting a knight, or something of that nature. And then Midjourney will then do the effort and work for you and then return that to you in Discord. They're using Discord as essentially, for lack of a better term, as a front end. So instead of doing it through a website, they're using Discord. And that can be really difficult if you are first trying to get into this. If you're starting to play around a little bit, it's really, really difficult to get that all set up. It's not very intuitive.
If you have a techie teenager or something,
they'll know how to do it.
This would be fine.
Yeah.
It's not like you have access to other people and other chat rooms or anything like that. There's not like a privacy safety concern.
They have a nice
from
walkthrough that if you follow it to the point, you can get it set up. I would say if you're going to start out and play around with it, start with DALL-E 2 because it's a better interface to start with.
Right.
I think Midjourney is a little bit better from a performance standpoint. I like what it generates better. They are actively right now, if I believe, they are putting together a mobile app for you to be able to use instead of having to use, or I think an app as well for your computer that you can then interface with their their image generation tool. So
and so while that's a little bit more tech difficult as far as using Discord, it's not crazy tech difficult here. We're not talking about, you need to have a lot of information, but you do have to follow the steps. The one thing about Midjourney is that you pay one price and you get to generate as many images as you want.
They will throttle you if you have too many.
Right. So it won't go as fast, but you could still do a lot. So rather than paying by image, you can just do as much as you want in that month for like the lowest one is
$10 to $30.
It's $10 for the slower package, and we're talking slow. It's not like it takes a day to render.
It's less than, to render an image, it would take you less than 20 seconds.
Right. So it's
depending on the queue, depending on how busy it is.
How busy, how many people are there. So you can really get it pretty affordably, and you can generate a lot of images in a month. So it's definitely the more affordable of the options. It's just a little bit more tech difficult to get into. So
the next one is Dream. I believe this is dream.ai is the website. They do a lot of surreal images, kind of dreamlike images, not as heavily on the realistic side. I played with this one just a little bit. It's kind of weird because there's so many of these things spawning every day and every week.
And there's a ton that we're not talking about. These are just the 3 most popular ones we're going to go over just for sake of time.
So they give you some options to kind of play around with it. That's a free option, and then obviously there's a paid option, like I think $5 a month for 10 images a day.
Right. So you can do 5 images a day for free. And 5 images sounds like a lot, but when you're trying to figure out getting these prompts just right, actually 5 is not very much at all, because you're really going to spend a lot of time playing with different text strings and what makes it look the way you see it in your head. So, you do want access to produce quite a bit more.
Yeah, if you're a very particular person, you are going to struggle with the image generators because you're going to have something very specific in your mind and they're going to create something and it'll be like 80% there, but you'll want it to be the 100%. It's really good for people who are, okay with the 80 or 90%,
Right.
but it's going to take you, like if you're trying to generate an image for something, like I remember I was working on an image for a specific, vision that I had. And it took me 150 cycles of playing with the prompt, redoing the prompt, reshuffling the prompt, changing certain words in the prompt, and working it until it gave me something that I was looking for. And once I got something that I was kind of looking for, or it spawned something that I thought was good, then I had to like hone that.
Right.
And then I had to play with it and twist it. And it could take you an hour to just generate that one image that you're looking for.
Right. And it really depends on what you're trying to create with this.
Yeah.
If your learner is trying to create something like
for like a book or a short
comic
story
book or something
yeah.
that you're going to take, you need the images to be just so, or you're going to be playing with lots of like character generation and things, you really could need a lot a day. So those are the 3 basic AI art generators, and we'll talk more about, what they're good for and how to use them in some ideas. But let's move on to the large language models. And so when you've heard AI lately, you're probably thinking this, and this is your ChatGPT, your Bard, now Claude has come out on the market, or Cloud. I don't know how we say it. It's spelled like Claude Monet. So I don't know.
Yep.
So those are the 3 that you're really hearing about, that they're doing congressional hearings on, and that they're talking about all over the place.
That your cousin who's a college student is using to help write his papers.
Right. That your, maybe your employer, like mine, has sent out emails saying, don't put anything confidential on this thing because it's not safe. It's not it's not private. Things like that. These are the ones you're really hearing about. So the large language models, the one that most everyone's hearing about is ChatGPT. Yep. And on this really great Facebook group, which I'll go into in a little bit, the moderator and creator Mary, she calls it Chatty. So I'm totally stealing that. Mary or whoever, if you're listening, I'm totally stealing Chatty because I think it's awesome. So this is free. The ChatGPT 3. There's 3 and 4.
4 is what you pay for, and 5 is in Skunkworks right now.
I don't see a good place to actually pay for 4 right now. There's not like hey, just pay $10 a month for 4. It's still kind of closed off. I imagine that maybe in the next month or 2, you'll be able to pay for 4, but right now you can only get 3. So ChatGPT, it's free, but the data is limited to everything before September of 2021 because it is the free version. So if at some point they let you pay for 4, then you'll get up-to-date information. But this is designed for dialogue applications, so it really strives to hold conversations that are really informative and engaging. And this one can create a lot of creative text. They can do poems or scripts, letters, haikus.
We were using it for party ideas for our 4-year-old.
I have a whole list of ideas.
Oh yeah, we'll get into it.
We've used it for tons of stuff, but this one is more geared towards being creative.
But it's a conversation. I think a lot of the guys in Silicon Valley are thinking that you will have an AI like a pet. And that pet lives with you for your entire life, and it learns what you learn and whatnot. So that's why they have this term conversations.
Right.
And so that's why it's like a thread where you're essentially, if you've used something like Teams, or if you've used something like a chat window or something where you have this, or you're just thinking like any type of chat that you have on your phone with like, your husband or wife or whatever.
Customer service,
yeah. And it has this like rolling thread, and you can continue to have a conversation. And what's cool is it's a realistic interface where you could say, hey, can you give me 5 plot ideas for a sci-fi book that's set on the moon? And it will give you a couple of ideas. And then you tell it and say, can you give me 5 more with a little bit more danger, And it will go and do that. And it'll see what you had written before.
And you can say like, expand on number 5. Yeah. And it remembers what number 5 was.
Number 5, yeah. And that is the beauty of it. That's where it gets really, really amazing when you're actually using these tools, that it feels so intuitive. Right. It feels natural. And that's kind of the idea is the large language models, is that it feels very natural. And these are basically predictive engines that they're not really, it's not like the Terminator. Like, you want to think it's a Terminator. Yeah. This is essentially these things are predictive engines based on what you've asked it. And it is trying to predict what is the most likely thing that you are looking for.
And it's been trained on all kinds of books and open source information and websites. And so they've trained on these huge data sets to try to get this information.
We're not talking like millions of words or billions of words. We're talking like trillions of things. Like it's the numbers of things that they train these models on is like, it's mind boggling how much they train these tools
Right.
on. It's amazing. I'm in a group on Reddit where they're playing with Lambda, which is I think the Facebook one, or they have all these smaller AI tools that people are actually training on their own with their own data sets. And they're trying to get them to do something specific, say like you're a medical or whatever. And you're seeing them train with like a little small subset of data. And they're like, oh, it starts to hallucinate because the term is hallucinate. The AI will hallucinate because it will not give you the right predictive data because it doesn't have enough data that it was trained on. It's really, the terms are really wild, and watching these guys.
Some of them are this like kind of anthropomorphized.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Like they're treating
terms.
it like a living thing, but it's really just a set of code that predicts things. But that's ChatGPT 3. What's cool about ChatGPT 3 is it has a web interface, but also an app that I think is now available on iOS and Android.
It is, because I have it.
Yeah, good.
I have the ChatGPT, the Chatty app.
The Chatty app. But what's the next one? This one's from Google.
Right. So this is Bard, also designed for dialogue. This one's cool because it has access to Google search.
Yeah.
So it can find things for you. It can give you results. It can give you answers and then feed in actual Google search results. And it's trained on a little bit larger data set. It can do creative text, but it's not really as good at that. Like if you want poems or creative writing,
use ChatGPT.
Use Chatty because it's much better at that. It is up to date though, which is great. So it doesn't have that cutoff. And you can upload, but you can only upload images. So you can upload an image to Google and say like, where is this? Or write me a poem on well, it's not good at poems, but
it's my wife's anniversary. Here's her first picture. Write me a haiku.
Or say, here's a picture. Plan me a trip itinerary around this space. When should I go here? Whatever. You can do a lot of interesting things. What's the best
time of year to visit Florence? Right. And it will give you that information.
Right. It can give you all kinds of stuff. So that's what's kind of nice about Bard. Chatty doesn't have any option for you to upload anything. No. Not ChatGPT 3. Anyway.
I think ChatGPT 4 allows you to do some of those. There's some features in 4 that are not available in 3.
That'll have to be covered on our next tech update.
Next one, yeah.
So the new kid on the block from Anthropic. Okay. Is Cloud, which has been trained on a lot of dialogue specific data. It's better at holding conversations. I've noticed that it's really good at like long form writing. Like if you want it to take, what's really nice about it is you can upload more than just images. You can upload documents. You can upload PDFs or docs. So if I had like a 30-page article that I wanted, I could upload it and say, could you summarize this for me in 500 words? And it will do it. And so that's really great. And I think...
Or like, for example, what if you were doing ancient civilizations in Egypt and there's this new discovery that you read on, I don't know, Scientific American. You can load that up and say, can you condense this into 2 paragraphs so that I can use this in our homeschool tomorrow?
Right. Or you find a great article and you load it up and say, can you summarize this in 100 words or less, or 2 paragraphs or less at a second grade level. Yeah. And it will do that. So it really can take this work away from you. You don't have to read all this stuff in order to then summarize it. So it's really good on that. The fact that you can upload documents means that I'm going to use that feature. One a lot.
Yeah, it's a great feature.
Yeah, because there are times when I need to read some pretty hefty articles and things, and it's going to cut my time down significantly. Yep. So those are the really good AI models or large language models. But one thing we did want to note is that, of course, there is this government oversight part that's coming in. I don't know exactly what limits they're going to put on it, but all of these companies are meeting with the White House right now, like next week. So this is an ongoing discussion, and they all do have open lawsuits about copyrights and things.
Yeah, what materials they use to train their models and all that stuff.
Right. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on. This is going to be a new and emergent thing, and we just wanted to make a note about that so that you all kind of know that it's nothing is settled with all of these. So let's get started on using AI art generators. Yep. You are great at this, so take it away. How do you use an AI art generator?
So with both the AI art generators and the large language models, they are primarily text-based interfaces. As of now, you cannot just speak to it I know you can do a little bit of text to speech if you did something like that on your phone, but
Yeah, you can hit the microphone
the
button.
microphone button and have it dictate what you're saying, but there's no interaction and there's no voice generated answers back to you. So you're not having an actual conversation. Everything is through words.
For now.
I
I feel like it's going to change someday.
And everything that we are saying has the little caveat at the end of it that says, as of now.
Right.
And next week, it will be different. And a lot of these tools like Midjourney that I'll talk specifically about here, they are moving really fast. Like every few months, I'm seeing a new version get dropped that is in beta mode, and people start making images. And I'm on the subreddit for Midjourney, and the artwork is just breathtaking. Like it's what comes in is just amazing. And they end up solving the problem of the hands. Okay. Midjourney had trouble making hands.
Yeah, it made hands with like a bunch of fingers.
8 or 9 fingers on it, or 7 fingers.
6-fingered man.
You'll have like, give me a picture of Harrison Ford, walking across the street, and he'll be like sitting there and be like, wow, that's amazing. And then he's noticed he's got like 8 fingers.
Right. Well, they can do some really, really interesting things, right? Because you could say something to it like, give me a picture of Harrison Ford as, I don't know, I'm going to come up with something weird. Harrison Ford in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And it will put like Harrison Ford's face in wizard robe at Hogwarts. It will
breathtaking.
do crazy, crazy stuff. It will blow your mind. And it's really fun.
Very often there are these somebody will have worked really hard to make a bunch of images. As we talked before, it's hard to get the image you want. But somebody will go out and do a big effort. They'll post 12 or 15 photos of, Harry Potter actors in a 70s sitcom. And it will be, Hermione's there and she's sitting there at a table, almost like That 70s Show, right?
Right.
And they'll make these mashups, and it'll be really fun and cool. And someone will make an article about it, and you'll scroll through all the images and be like, wow, that's amazing. And it is breathtaking. So everything is done through a text input. Mm-hmm. And the text input, this is where the art is they call it text engineers now. How well can you learn how the AI wants to get the information so that you can get out what you want. And that's really where the art is. How can I put the words in a certain way that will generate the outcome that I'm looking for? And then how can I take that outcome and maybe tweak it a little bit and then try something new, or take that prompt and, remove this piece which is causing errors or quote unquote hallucinations. Mm-hmm. And I really want this other thing, so I have to change the words. It's all this nuance of how to use the terms and words. And they're not like special words, they're just, how are you describing what you want? And how does the AI take that information and then use those words to go through its gigantic probability map to essentially remove all the noise and then give you the image. And that's essentially what it's doing. It's actually thinking in some respect.
I think that this more than language models, the AI art generators, it is a skill.
It's a big time
skill. It
is
an absolute skill. When you first start with it, you may have a really difficult time getting it to produce what you envision it producing, but it can make absolutely amazing results. So I think that, it's really easy to start using it, but to use it well takes a lot of practice and time, highly worth it, right? But the language models, really low barrier to entry. You can play around. Definitely it does matter kind of some of your word choice, but every single word you use in an AI art generator makes a difference to that image. Whereas that's not necessarily the case. There's a bunch of ways to ask the same question of a language model. It'll give you basically the same answer, and you can ask it in different forms and it'll be fine. But AI art generators are not. Every single word is vital.
It matters.
It all matters.
Absolutely matters. And there are some theories where people use more words and some people use less words because, more words that are more specific the AI will know exactly what I'm looking for and generate what I need. Some people will say, oh no, it's confusing the AI. It's too much. You need to be simpler, and then use that simple text to then generate what you're looking for and then run a bunch of iterations. So there's a lot of like working theories on what is best and what is worst. So essentially, once you give it a prompt, it begins to work. What's cool is some of the tools will allow you to make multiple prompts. So you can have one cooking, essentially one pot cooking here, and then you can go put another prompt in and have another pot cooking. Mm-hmm. And you can do a couple, and they put them into like a queue. And then all of a sudden, boom, here comes your first generation. And very often they give you multiple images. So you took your prompt and they said, not only did I make you one image, I made you about 2 or 3 or 4. Midjourney makes you 4 images. And each image could be wildly different. Some of them are very similar depending on like how specific your prompt was. From there, you can choose, I don't like any of these images. And they give you...
Roll the dice again.
Roll it again. And then essentially what that means is that take that prompt, just do it again. And then it's going to generate 4 new images that are completely different from the previous 4 that you had. And you may just hit roll like 20 times. And finally, boom, here comes the one that has the right composition that I'm looking for. Not perfect. Maybe give me some more variations on this image. And so that's the first choice you get to have. You can either take more variations, and then what it will do is we'll say, okay, take image 2, but give me some different combinations of flavors of that one.
It's not going to be as dramatic a change as re-rolling the whole thing, but you're like, I like 80% of that image, but I want to see it in different settings or whatever.
Exactly.
And so that's what a variation does. It's not as much change.
It's not as much change. Then all of a sudden you do that 3 or 4 times, re-roll. That's the one. I like this one really, really, really nicely. Upscale this one. But what that does is it takes this quickly rendered image and says, okay, I'm going to redo this one image, but I'm going to do a really good job at it.
Put all the detail.
All the effort and everything. And then you end up getting, I think, 2 images off of that or 1 or 2 images off of that. And then there's some other features where you can say, enhance this even more, expand the image, which is a new feature which allows you to say, I love the image, but I want the background. I want this image to be a little bit smaller and I want more background. Mm-hmm. And it will actually generate additional background. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Or move this character over a tad. And you have this right, left, up, or down arrows now where you can actually move your character around the image. So very good is like expand the image and then move my character over. So if you're thinking of like, I want to put something on the thirds, right? That's a aesthetically beautiful thing, is putting things on the thirds. It's like a film or a photography thing. You can do that by moving your image around a little bit now. They have a little bit more control and tools there. So that's essentially what you can do. And then once you have that generated, you then right click and hit save, and that's your image. And it's a large image. These will be very large, high def, I think 3 megabyte images, like 1,440, and it depends on what your aspect ratio was.
Yeah, you can make like a small like poster for a room out of these.
Exactly. And you could do wall art. Like if you're thinking about doing something on your wall and you want to, your kid is interested in generating fantasy landscapes or whatever it might be, or these are really, really cool things. Now, things that people can do with this. Now, you can obviously print it off, put it up as wall art, and like, hey, look how amazing this thing is. You can use it for writing, like we were talking about. Like if your young student is writing a short story set in a mythical fantasy world, you can have this AI art generate for them.
Right, which is really cool, right? When your student is too young to be able to put the image in their head onto paper, they can say, "Oh, I want to write this story about a unicorn that goes on an adventure to find lost artifacts in ancient Egypt," or something crazy thing that no one has ever done before. And Midjourney will make that for them.
They will.
So I love the imaginative power of it, because you could almost, those like Rory story cubes.
Yep. We were playing with them yesterday.
Yeah, you could almost like roll Rory story cubes and get all these things and just add them all into a prompt and help it like make pictures to go with your story. What I love about Midjourney is that the sky is the limit.
It's unbounded.
Your kids can create anything that they can imagine.
Oh, and a good thing to note here as well, that Midjourney has a layer above the generator. And this is something they've generated where they restrict certain type of content. So sexual content, blood, gore, anything super nasty, like they restrict certain words. Mm-hmm. And if you get hit by one of the words, sometimes it'll be something silly like blood, right? And you'll use it in the wrong way. I like an image of an arm with the blood vessels, right? And that may get rejected because it said blood. And they don't want to do gore. And that's something they'll restrict. And so you have to say human anatomy, veins, hand-drawn, blah, blah, blah. And so you can't say certain words. No sexualized content. So if you use any sexualized anatomy, any nasty words, naughty words, any racial words. They're all restricted. So it's a fairly safe platform with respect to
Right.
what is being generated.
And there's no interaction from other people. So it's
No.
just, it's your own private thing.
Well, what are you talking about? The AI is a person.
So that is cool. And I think one thing that you mentioned there that we should talk about, you said hand drawn. You can also specify not just what you want, but the style. Oh, your student loves a certain artist. They can make it in that style.
That's where a little bit
They
of controversy
love,
comes. Yeah.
Japanese anime, and they want to do whatever in that
A
style.
manga drawing, or if you're looking for a black and white image that you can use as a coloring thing, like we
Right.
did
You
this.
can make coloring pages out of this. We
did this
playing
with
it.
Avatar. Our daughter, oldest daughter, and youngest as well. They like watching the Avatar show,
The Last Airbender.
the Airbender show, and she was looking for a Katara coloring page. And I'm always going on Google Katara, coloring page.
Man,
and
we're always on
print,
Google
print.
Images, printing coloring pages.
It's amazing. And I went into Midjourney. I said, I wonder if it would make me something. So I put Katara, using magic, action, dramatic, comma, black and white. And it generated me this like wonderful black and white image of Katara, doing something. And I went ahead and printed it. My daughter colored it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's really neat. So you can create those. You can also use it. People are starting to use it to create their own graphic novels. So if you have a middle school or teen or even younger, if you want to help them, you can start figuring out there is a way, and this is part of the skill stuff, so we won't talk too in depth about it, but there is a way to kind of save a character and continue to use that.
It's very difficult.
It's not super easy. It would be best for, like I'd say, like a high school student, but you can save that prompt and then put that character in different places. But there's been folks who've created whole graphic novels out of Midjourney. And I love this availability of art. It's also a great inspiration tool. Let's say that your child, you want your child to do some art and they're just having like a block coming up with ideas. This is a great way to put a bunch of stuff in there and give them some ideas, and then maybe they can draw from that, or it'll give them writing inspiration for some sort of a new short story. This is great if you've got a child who plays D&D and they want to make a character for themselves, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's a great way. Let's say that they want to write a fantasy story and they're thinking of the different traits in their head, of the different ways that they might want their characters to be. They can make all the characters in Midjourney, and then they can see them. They almost come to life, and then they can write about them.
If you have a student who's getting into graphic design or getting into art, and they always feel like, okay, I'm doing these, concept landscape designs, and they're really scary and big. You can start on Midjourney and then import that image in, and they can begin to use the art as kind of a guide, or they can modify that AI image and make it something their own.
Our daughter has started doing tracing with them too. So you can have a black and white image and then they can trace. And so that's a good, way before they have the art skills. So
there's a lot on the AI art.
There's a lot of things you can do with it. Mostly it's really, really cool. And the things that you can make are like, the moment you get yourself onto something like Midjourney, you'll just be up all night making just crazy images because you can, and it's amazing, and it gives you hundreds of ideas for stories and things. So that's AI art generators.
So let's talk about the large language models. So if you go ahead and get a large language model, you've used ChatGPT or
I've
Bard.
used all three of them.
Yeah, Bard and Claude. How do you start?
So these are all Google account sign-ins. So you can just use your Google account, sign in with that. Everything is free, which is great. So ChatGPT 3 and Bard and Claude, all free. So you don't have to worry about that. You, as we talked about, pose the questions through the chat strings and they do remember your conversation. Older chats are remembered. And so you really, if you're going to change topics, you want to start a new string because it's going to remember data from something you were talking about, something different. It does save your old conversations. Eventually they do fall off. So but your last, like in ChatGPT, gosh, my last like 15 conversations are saved. So I can go back. You can also share your conversations. So you can click on a share link and send them to somebody, or you can save them in your Google Doc or something like, oh, here's a bunch of great ideas for ancient Egypt activities. I'm just going to save that for later. And I think if you save the link, it saves it'll pull the conversation back up, even if it's not in your like most recent history. So they're really good at, they're great at providing quick information and answers about anything. Like
the what are great family movies from the 90s?
Right. We wanted some great family movies to watch with our kids. They watched
Beethoven.
a movie. Yeah, they watched Beethoven. They loved like the big.
We did Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, they loved like big silly dog movies.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, there's all these great 90s family movies. So we asked it to give us some suggestions. As I'm going through doing our ancient civilizations, I'm asking for movie suggestions. You can ask it for book recommendations on different topics.
And this is really one of the big things that I've heard about ChatGPT, and the reason why Microsoft jumped in to help fund OpenAI, which runs ChatGPT, is that it is a potential replacement for search.
It for me, it does. It is the fastest way to understand something. And through all of my college coursework that I've done this year, I have used it a ton to help just as my first step in doing research. Like we were doing a whole thing about General Motors and had to research this company and all this stuff.
And what's funny is
and I was like, what are the three biggest challenges facing General Motors right now? And it was like, boom, 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 here they are.
It's amazing.
I'm like, okay, great. That gives me an idea. Now I'm going to go find articles that can support those ideas.
It's kind of how we used Wikipedia back in early 2000s. It was like our starting point.
Yeah, it is.
And then we went off
starting point,
and we did our research. And it helps. What I like about it is it helps to give you a good starting point on the way you're thinking. Like, okay, I've got to complete this task. I've got to do X, Y, or Z. And a lot of times you're like, oh man, I don't even know where to start. Like, where do I start?
Right.
Just ask ChatGPT.
It gives you great information.
It's a great starting point, kind of a nice little vector for you to go off in this direction at this speed. And then you go ahead and take the ball where you want it.
Absolutely. It's, what are the key takeaways about ancient Sumeria, ancient Sumer at a first grade level?
Yeah.
Why is it important to study the history of Mesopotamia? This is the stuff I've been searching about for ancient Egypt and all our ancient studies and stuff. And it gives it to you. Hey, suggest me activities to do that are nature-based that go with the study of, I don't know, snails or whatever. Or I want nature-based activities that go with early biology.
What type of bugs do I find in the local river in my area?
Right. I mean, we're just like throwing stuff out there, but it can give you all kinds of great information. So that's the first thing it's good at. It can also translate language, which is fantastic. It's really good at writing complex text in a variety of styles. It can write you an essay, a poem, a blog post. You can change its style and say, hey, write me the key overview of, like I said, ancient Sumer at first grade level. Write it more formal. No, write it more casual. I saw somebody do a prompt of, how do I write an email to tell my in-laws I'm not coming for Thanksgiving?
Yes,
and it was like, make it more conversational, make it more heartfelt, and it will do that. Right. So that's kind of fun.
I know your parents don't listen. I'm going to go ahead and ChatGPT this one.
Yeah, right. So you can change its style even. It's really good at summarizing lengthy passages of text. So you have to copy and paste that into ChatGPT and Bard, but you can attach it with Claude. Yeah. So that is great. It's like, oh man, I've got to read this entire thing. Let's just put it into there and have it summarize it for me. And then you can decide what you want to go further into.
That's the risky part. Like, is that summary correct? Is that summary right?
So yeah, I mean,
we'll test that. Don't like run into it.
Right. It's kind of a trust but verify situation, and we'll talk about what it's not good at. But these are things that it can do.
And then programming help. I know a lot of programmers are using ChatGPT. It's kind of funny. When I used to do a lot of code stuff in my previous life, I used to watch the developers go out to the internet to I think there was a couple developer websites, famous ones like, I don't know. I could figure them out, but they would go and actually find algorithms or function calls that were similar to what they were trying to do and just copy and paste.
Just sample code, and then they would practice.
And now ChatGPT, you can go in and say, hey, give me a function that does this, that parses this data, that returns this value in this style. And
great for kids who are learning to code and they want to do really simple things.
And you can specify different languages. So if you're like, hey, we're writing in C or C++ or Python or Perl or whatever whatever scripting language you might be playing with, it will do that for you.
Right. And think about what you'd have to do otherwise. You'd either have to go find a book on it and your kid's flipping through this book to try to find these basic, coding examples.
That's typically not how people learn how to code. They learn how to use.
Right. Yeah. Or you go and you're searching all of these different websites with like, help, I can't get this thing to work. And then you have all these answers people have given and you're trying to find the code. This is a faster way to shortcut that. So if you're having a kid who's learning to code, this is a great example. The other thing it can do is help you brainstorm ideas. Like you said, we had a 4-year-old's birthday party to put on. It was outside. And so we're like, hey, give us ideas for a 4-year-old's birthday party for activities. And then it came up and we're like, half the kids coming are actually older siblings. Give ideas for multi-age activities. And it gave it. Oh, and then the day before we realized it was going to rain. Give us ideas for, indoor activities or under shelter activities that are still outside for a 4-year-old's birthday party.
And it did.
It gave us
we used like 2 or 3 of them.
So many ideas. We had this huge scavenger hunt that the kids ran around and did. And it gave us all kinds of ideas that we were just... Do you know how many websites we would have had to go through, blogs and stuff of best kids party ideas or whatever?
And how many times are you there? Are you sitting there going, what am I going to do with the kids today? What am I going to do with the kids today? I don't even know. But if you got recommended like 1 or 2 things, you're like, yeah, I'll take it. Let's go.
Well, one of the things, like for the 4-year-old's birthday party example, if you think about what I would have done before this, I would have gone to I would have done a Google search, or I would have gone to Pinterest, and I would have clicked on a bunch of blogs that gave ideas for 4-year-olds' birthday parties. And you know what? Those blogs would have a certain amount of overlap where it's like, these are 10 ideas. Oh yeah, 4 of them I've already heard of. I'm only going to get a couple. And then I'm going to go to another site and I'm going to look and, I've heard of most of those. I'm only going to get a couple. So I'm going to all these sites. Instead, ChatGPT is not duplicating. They're just giving me a whole list.
I remember we were like, give us 5 more, give us 5 more.
Yeah,
give
expand,
us 5 more. Yeah, more.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can get it to whatever it gives you. Say, no, I want to know more. No increase that, no shorten it, no change it this way or that. And it does it. So, which is really great. It's also really good at explaining complex concepts and step-by-step task explanations. So like you read about some complex math thing, you could then say, ChatGPT or Chatty or Bard, can you explain to me what the power rule is? No, simplify. Give an example. You could do that.
Is ChatGPT Chatty and is Bard, Billy? Like, because Bard's from Shakespeare, right? The Bard, right?
I don't know. I'm not ready.
Billy Shakes?
I haven't come to it, but Chatty. I'm going with Chatty. So it can do things like that. If you read something and you frankly are just like, that's not clicking with me, you could go and find a video about it or find a website, or you could just ask Chatty, hey, or Bard, explain this to me. No, give more examples. Simplify, summarize, get it to produce the information that you need to help you. It can also have interactive conversations. It can do back and forth dialogue with you, which can just kind of be fun. And they can course correct their answer. So we talked about it. So you can expand, you can simplify, you can add more detail in a specific area. Like, give me 3 options. Give me more on option 3. Expand on that. Make it this way. Do that. So it's all that memory allowing you to do that. So those are the things it can do.
So tell us what it can't do.
So it's not good at giving completely accurate information, although it's really fun if you type in to Bard, what is Homeschool Together podcast? It thinks we're awesome, by the way. It gives us a glowing review that we are helpful, full of information and resources. So some things it has right.
Matt and Ariel are literally shining
It was
examples.
really fun, actually, to do that on ourselves. So you do have to take some things with a grain of salt, especially like new current event type things.
Yeah.
Those things are like a little bit suspect. Long-standing information is a lot more reliable. So when I say, what was most important about ancient Sumer? I'm pretty confident that it's probably getting that right? Yeah. Explain to me a mathematical concept, probably right. Or some, piece of science, explain cellular mitosis or whatever. Yeah. It's getting that. That's not a problem.
Stuff that is in doubt or still has some level of dispute or opinion on can be a little bit more challenging. And I know ChatGPT tries to let you know ahead of time saying, hey, this is we're not really sure 100%, but
Right.
this is blah, blah, blah. They always put the nice little paragraph in front sometimes when you're getting into kind of sketchy
You're like,
territory.
I'm a language model. I'm not really prepared to say this, but we asked it for things like best kids movies of the 80s or something.
Yeah.
And it gave us it gave us like The Wizard of Oz. We're like, that's not from the 80s,
Started to hallucinate.
It's not perfect. So
Yeah.
you do have to kind of check the information. Like we said, when you're talking about long-standing information, like textbook type information,
Yeah.
it's pretty solid. It really is. It's more like current event, cultural stuff like that. It's not perfect at, so be careful. Obviously not good for up-to-date info if you're using Chatty. You have to use Bard. So if you want anything that's happened in the last 2 years, you have to use Bard or Claude. It can't do critical thinking, so don't ask it to really think critically about stuff, and it can't give you opinions or beliefs.
They're just like with Midjourney, again, that same layer where OpenAI protects the user from the model by restricting certain types of content, certain types of prompts that won't allow certain types of responses or words, or it won't give you any racist responses or anything that's negative and bad like that. So you can feel fairly confident to let your kids kind of explore in this area, because they do put a little bit of parental controls, like content controls, because they don't want their product spewing out nasty things.
Right.
And whatnot.
They don't want
yeah.
it to do bad things. So that's definitely true.
Yeah.
The other thing it's not good at is privacy and security. So don't put anything on there that's confidential. So my work is constantly saying, don't use it for anything that's got confidential information, because it just becomes part of the training database. So don't do that.
There's a reason why it's free.
Yes, exactly. So don't do that. It really gives you surface level information. It's not an expert at anything. At some point, if you ask it to give you more, Yet. Okay. What was our caveat? At now, for this moment, as of now. So it's not an expert. And if you ask it to keep giving you more detail, eventually it's going to just start repeating itself. So that's not what it's good at. It's not good at like humor and creativity. Some of that, it can be highly subjective. It's not perfect at that. I think it does a pretty good job with like, write me a short story that's set in this time period. Like I could have it write me a short story based in ancient Sumer that we could read to our daughter.
Ariel, why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Chatty. That's good. That's straight up.
It's got some good dad jokes.
That's straight up dad joke territory.
But it's subjective. It can be culturally insensitive. Like obviously they're not going to let you do racist things, but it can. It doesn't have
full guardrails.
Doesn't have a filter, so it can say be aware. It's really literal when it's interpreting questions, so it doesn't get sarcasm or nuance
or colloquialisms or anything like that.
Right, it has a real hard time
struggles
with
that. Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons why sometimes it can be a little culturally insensitive too, because it's just very literal because it's a computer. It's also not good at finding YouTube videos to support a subject, which is really surprising considering that Bard is owned by Google. And one would think when I ask for videos about a subject, it would not take me to other websites with videos. It would take me to YouTube. I expect that will change. I expect we're going to be able to search Bard and say, give me videos on ancient Mesopotamia at a first grade level, and it would do that for us.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's coming. It's just not there yet. So that's kind of what it's good at, what it's not good at.
This is a homeschool podcast. These are tools. How can these people use these tools to help them in their homeschool? Save time, come up with ideas, things of that nature.
There are so many ideas.
I know.
We're just going to throw a bunch of stuff at you. Yeah. So you can create lesson plans on any subject you can think of. And
it will do a very good job at formatting things.
It does.
Generating like bullets and organizational
numbered lists.
Give me a quick unit study on blah, blah, blah. And it will
just make a 6-week lesson plan on sharks at a 3rd grade level, include art activities and recipes and nature study, and recommend documentaries to go with it. And you can say that and it will literally make you a 5-week or 6-week lesson.
I asked it to say, generate me an early reader story for a 1st grader around the letter D. That's 100 words.
Yeah.
And it did. a fantasy story.
Right.
It did, about dragons and this.
Write me a CVC story.
Yeah.
Right.
Write me a LinkedIn profile.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it writes amazing LinkedIn profile. You guys, it's really good. It's like scary good.
Yeah.
So it can really provide you an overview or key takeaways of a topic. So if you just want like what's important about this, which is what I've been doing to start each week of our ancient civilization study, and like, what's the important thing about first writing? What should we know about it?
Yep.
So we can kind of ground our daughter in what we're going to learn. Really great at comprehension questions for a book. So it's like, oh, give me comprehension questions for chapter 1 of Tale of Despero. It'll do that for you. It'll absolutely do that for you. And it was funny. I think my boss had a book and he was reading it and he was like, oh man, I have this book club thing tonight. I'm supposed to finish this chapter, but I've been in this meeting all day. And I was like, why don't you ask Chatty for a summary of the chapter? And he was like, you can do that? I go, yeah, absolutely, you can do that. So he did. And he goes, oh my gosh, this saved me so much time. And now I can go to the thing I was going to show up and not have it done. Right. And so, I mean, listen, we can talk about whether we think things are cheating or not. And obviously, you need to be aware of the things it can do because you do want your homeschoolers to come up with their own original ideas and things. But sometimes it is fabulous to get a summary. Sometimes I think it's great to have a summary of something before we read it to our kids so we know what to expect.
Yep.
So we can say like, oh, okay, this is what's going to be going on. Your favorite example of this is Cliff Notes. You love to read the Cliff Notes first of that section of Shakespeare and then read Shakespeare because you understand so much more about it when you do that.
You take away more in less time.
Absolutely. And it makes a better impression. So I think there's a line, right, between cheating and helping, understanding. So I'll let you all draw that line. But these are the things it can do. It can also teach, show you how to teach subjects in different ways. So like I'm trying to teach this math thing. I've got this really kinesthetic learner. My curriculum's not supporting that. And my kids are just not grokking this. Well, how do I get this? You could ask Bard, hey, how can I teach this math rule or this concept in a different way, maybe more of a hands-on way, or I need to do something visual or whatever it is. So you can really adjust your needs to your kids' learning style. You can help explain really difficult subjects. So I think this is really great, especially you've got some really difficult like chemistry topics or bio topics that you're like, I'm not sure how I'm going to teach that. I don't fully understand it. This is a great way to get a summary before you go into teaching your student. One person I saw had created a calendar for the school year. They have a requirement in their state that they have to do so many days of instruction. They already know they want to have these days off at Christmas and they want to have a week in the fall for a trip and a week here, and they only want to school 4 days, and they did it, and it came up with their entire calendar of all their school days.
That's tremendous. It
can make a block schedule for you, and it can do a loop schedule. It can create all of your like daily, weekly, monthly plans. You do have to give it limits, and or you'll be doing school like all day. It'll give you like 9 to 12 do this, 1 to 5 do this. So I mean, you have to set some limits, but you could say, I want to teach these 7 subjects. I only want to teach for 3 hours a day in the morning, and I want to loop them. How long should I spend on each one? And it will make you a custom weekly plan of what you can do.
Trip itineraries. That's a big one that I've heard people do.
That is so fun.
And that's, it's great if you guys are going overseas or if you're going traveling with your kids. But if you're just going camping to a certain area and you want to know, like, what are the 5 trees that are in this area? What are the animals, the big animals that are in this area? Where can I, if I were to go to Florence, give me a 7-day travel itinerary. And it will do that. It will generate 7 different days, exactly what you want to visit on each day. And I think it's getting to the point a few of these apps now are going to start saying, well, go to Expedia and book me that trip.
Right. You can even say right now it's able, if you use Bard, like it's able to say what days you can fly and times you can fly and stuff. You can say, hey, I'm going to be in, whatever. I said the other day, what are places that I can view dinosaur fossils within a 4-hour drive of Seattle?
That's great.
And it gave me all of these different locations. I'm like, I didn't even know some of these existed.
A couple of them were like museums that we didn't heard about.
Yeah, there was other just places that I just wasn't aware of. So it can do some really great things for you. And of course, you can caveat all that stuff too, right? You can say, oh, I want ideas for this area that would be appropriate for an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Yeah, right.
Right. Or, what I want things to do. I want to go to Florence and I want things that focus only on art while I'm there. and it'll do that. Or I want to go to Italy and I want to do only wine tours. Whatever it is that you want to do, it gives you really cool ideas.
The writing one is, I think, a big one. A lot of writing prompts.
Really great writing prompts.
But also writing short stories. But I've played with it for the writing the short stories thing. And with the amount of rework that's necessary, because it's never what you want the story to be, unless you're just trying to crank out, mindless things.
Well, it's great to read to your kid.
Yeah.
Not to save, but just to say like,
exactly.
I want my, I don't have a lit selection that goes with this topic I'm studying. I'll have it write me a quick story that I can read to my student that's perfect. About that. And you could even put your student in the story, because you could say, write me, let's say your kid's name is Alex. You say, write me a story about a child named Alex who lives on the moon and does this and this and that and gets into adventures or whatever. You could make them the star of their own story. I mean, how cool is that?
But you don't make it Alex. You make it Schmalix. That's what I always do. It's not a girl named Ariel. It's a girl named Schmariel. My daughters love that.
they love the schma added to the front of the name.
Matthew.
So that's a really cool idea. And the writing prompts are excellent.
They're
I've been
great.
using the writing prompts every week of our ancient civilizations, and it's been really cool to generate ideas for our kids. It can also suggest exercises or activities that leverage things you need your student to study. So
I've actually heard, talking about exercises and activities, I've actually heard people using it to say, build me an exercise plan, or
build
me a running plan. Yeah. Like you can actually use it to generate, like if you have a young learner who is starting to get into, playing with robots or building Legos or whatever, give me a build plan over the next month where my learner will build something that's engineering focused in Legos.
Yeah.
And it will go ahead and give you a bunch of list of ideas. It's amazing what you can do, especially you unschoolers out there who are looking to help accelerate your kids' learning or with ideas, and you feel like, I'm just not creative enough. You always say that. I wake up, I'm not very creative in the moment, right? Chatty, or Billy, as I'm going to call him, Billy, can really help you, get over that hump if you feel you're just not creative enough to get over, to be spur of the moment, exciting, do different ideas. I think it helps open up that opportunity for you.
Absolutely. I think whenever you're having a block, this is a great way to unblock yourself. It can also do things like, I would like recipes inspired by this time in history. Yes. What did they mainly eat in ancient Sumer? And give me recipes that include those ingredients.
That's a great point.
I've not made anything from Chatty, but knowing the recipes it suggests, I can go out to the internet then and find what I think are, well-reviewed recipes of those things that, I didn't know that that's what they ate. So that's really fun as well. It can provide suggestions to you as well for how to improve your writing. So if you have a student who has written something and they're just not sure about it before you read through it, maybe they just want a peer review, they can ask Chatty or Billy or whatever, or Claude, to peer review it for them. They can upload it and say, can you make suggestions of how I could write this better, or what things I could do to make this story more dynamic? What if you've got a child who loves writing fiction? They don't want us to write it for them, but maybe they want some critique. Maybe they want some other ideas.
That's a great point. Be a critique partner.
Right. So that's a really great way to use it. And as we said, it's just a fantastic research tool, jumping off point. You do have to try to verify. You can ask for citations. Only Bard and Claude can give citations. Unfortunately, the citations are usually from books and not from websites that we can verify easily. So, be careful with the research, but it's a great initial step. It will save you a lot of time in, searching endless websites for this information. So we hope that this has been helpful to you. As we said, we're going to
kind of a big dump.
There's a lot. It
was very surface level.
It is very high. There's so many things you can do with it, guys. We haven't even touched the surface. And we hope that you'll share in our Facebook group things that you've done with it. If you're interested in this topic, there's a great Facebook group called Using ChatGPT and AI in Homeschooling, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. The admin over there, creator Mary, has done a great job of giving some super cool prompt ideas for you.
I think the big thing with the AI stuff, whether it's image or the language, the LLMs, if you're a little bit leery of it and scared of it, I just encourage you to play with it for an hour.
Yeah.
Sign up to OpenAI, sit down and start making some prompts. Try something, try things. Give you some ideas, have it write something for you, have it do whatever. Almost every person that has not used it, who we've pulled into this room right here that we're doing the podcasting, and we put them in front of the screen and say, give me a prompt. And we generate it. Their mouths are on the floor.
Right.
Because it's just amazing to watch it actually happen. And remember, this is ChatGPT 3, which is not the latest and greatest version of it. It's amazing to watch. And I think it dispels a lot of fears. And I think you start to see the opportunities and that you can then apply this in your homeschool, whatever it might be, or where your learners can, leverage this technology and actually have a fun experience that may, drive creativity and drive learning and drive interest in something that they maybe never thought they would be interested in. I love it. I love the tools. I love it for the possibilities. They feel endless.
I can't even imagine. They're coming up with new ththings every day.
I feel like for a lot of people out there, it has turbocharged their creativity. And I always joke with one of my friends that I said about 5 or 6 years ago, I said in the future they're going to measure productivity not by per capita, but by how many AI tools you're going to end up managing. Like you're going to have all your AIs that you'll be managing, whether it's image generation or large language model here, or your accounting tool here, and your medical tool over here, or whatever it might be. You're just going to be using all these AIs to help manage things, and you're going to be the architect in the middle.
Right. And I think it's valid to say that however we might feel about this technology right now, it's definitely going to become a bigger part. I mean, they're already going to be integrating these AI tools into Microsoft products. So your, Word and Excel and stuff, it's going to be there. And I think for our kids, as they grow,
it's not going to be clippy anymore. It's going to be chatty.
As our kids grow up and then they get ready to move into college and go into the working world, there are going to be jobs that maybe are not the right jobs to go into at this point because they might be eclipsed by AI. There's going to be jobs where they're going to need to understand and be able to manage and work with the AI and leverage it. So
medical profession will be a good example of that. Legal profession will be another one.
Right. They're going to want to leverage this tool. And I think it's going to continue to grow and continue to be better. Yeah. Obviously, there are all kinds of, scary Skynet takes over the world things. But at the moment, this is a tool that we have in our toolbox. And I think if we can learn how to use it and utilize it, it can really help you in your homeschool. I know it's helped us in ours so far. Absolutely. So this is just, like we said, our surface episode. We hope this has given you some ideas. Go play with things, make things, show us what you do. Absolutely. We would love for you to share it with our community so we can all help each other to grow and learn how to use this in our homeschools.
Yeah, more efficient and dynamic homeschoolers.
That's right.
Let's talk. End it real quick. I know it's been a little bit of a long episode.
We're getting into a streak here with 2 really long episodes. What's going on?
We just got a lot to say. I've been reading a new storybook to my youngest, and I know my oldest listened to this book as an audiobook, and she really liked it. So I have 2 thumbs up from 2 different kids, 8 and 4. It's the Dragon Masters. So if you have a little one out there who is interested in dragons, it's kind of a fun, very, very early reading.
It's above Kingdom of Renly, right?
No, it's a little bit below Kingdom of Renly.
Oh, okay.
I think personally, Kingdom of Renly's written a little bit more, like slightly more elevated than this. So if you're looking for something, maybe your learner isn't as into Kingdom of Renly, but they're looking for kind of early chapter books. These chapters are maybe 4 or 5 pages long.
Right.
And it's
You're reading this to our 4-year-old, and she is totally into it.
Yeah, so very similar to Renly, where there are pictures on every single page. Text does not take up the whole width of the page, the height of the page. It's just like a small block here, a small block here, turn the page, another small block, another small block. So it's not a lot of reading. You can read 2 chapters in maybe 5 or 6 minutes.
It's a great precursor if you have older students who are reading like Wings of Fire. This is the younger student version of that. We do, and this is exactly what's going on in our house. So, we have an older student who loves Wings of Fire.
Yeah, exactly.
and our younger one who's like, I want to read about dragons.
Exactly.
And so you got this. This is a scholastic series.
Yeah, and I got the one from the store that had the first 3 books in kind of one book.
Yeah.
And so the first one is basically the rise of the Earth Dragon. It's a story of Drake, and he is an onion farmer, and he is somehow magically pulled out of his job as being an onion farmer with his family and thrust into the world of raising and rearing dragons.
Oh, cool.
And there's 3 other kids who are raising the dragons. For some reason, children are the best at raising the dragons, and there are these dragon stones, and he has to befriend his dragon, and the dragon is named Worm, and he does not have legs. He just has little wings, and he looks like a worm. And he goes through the trials and tribulations. Each kid has a different dragon, and each dragon has a different capability. One shoots rainbows, and one shoots fire. One shoots light. They all do very funny things. And each kid has its own, has their own goods and bads and everything. And one's a little much of like a bully a little bit, and they kind of arrogant, and another one's really shy. And so has that kind of like nice smattering of different personalities and whatnot. It's very cute, very quick to read, wonderful artwork, very playful, kind of comic booky style, light and fun. I believe the one we have is color. And so there's a lot of nice vibrant colors in there.
No, there's like over 20 books in this series. So if you get into it, there's a long runway on this one.
You can get paperbacks for really cheap, like $4 or $5. So if you want to start collecting them, it's not a very big investment, but they're very fun, very light. And you can definitely see this as being like a book I think our oldest might actually be able to pick up soon, maybe in a year or so, and actually read to herself.
Oh, that's exciting.
So it definitely has longevity from, early reading just as entertainment, not going to bed type of stories, but also maybe as like an emerging reader, early chapter book for a young reader. Nice. Kind of has dual usages there.
I love dual use books.
Yeah, I at least want to get 2 uses out of anything. But anyway, so that is The Dragon Masters, is written by Tracy West. A very simple, very quick, very fun, very playful book. The stakes are very low, and it's very sweet and cute and fun. So definitely recommend it.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!